In the quiet village of Mehrabad lived a young man named Azan, known for his calm nature and curious mind. He had grown up in a small clay house near the fields, where life was simple and predictable. But Azan himself was different. He dreamed bigger than the borders of the village could ever contain. Every morning, as the sun rose behind the dusty hills, Azan would sit under the old banyan tree with a notebook in his hand. He wrote ideas, goals, dreams, inventions, and business plans. No one knew exactly what he wrote, they only knew he was always thinking, always planning, always imagining. But there was one thing he never understood: why did everyone feel the need to know his plans? Whenever he hinted at a dream, someone would say, "It's impossible." Whenever he mentioned starting something new, someone would laugh, You don't have what it takes." Whenever he tried to share a goal, eyes filled with jealousy would follow. Years passed, and with every negative comment, Azan learned one lesson deeply: not everyone who smiles at you wants you to succeed. And slowly, he stopped sharing his plans. One winter night, while the villagers slept, Azan lay awake staring at the ceiling. He had noticed something in the market earlier that day: a new type of solar lantern used by tourists from the city. It was small, bright, and lasted all night. Azan thought, why can't my village have something like this? Why should we still struggle with candles and weak electricity? That night, he sketched an idea for a low-cost solar lantern that could be made using simple materials available locally. He didn't know everything, but he knew enough to start experimenting. He wanted to tell his best friend Danish, but then he remembered how Danish once laughed at his dream of becoming an inventor. He wanted to tell his neighbors, but he remembered how they gossiped when he tried opening a small tutoring class. So he stayed quiet. He worked alone. He researched in silence. He bought small parts from the town market, telling the shopkeepers they were for a school project. Every night, he worked late, adjusting wires, testing batteries, fixing panels, until finally, on a cold February evening, the lantern turned on. A soft, steady, bright glow filled his little room. Azan smiled. It was the first step towards something big. Success has a strange scent, people can smell it even before it becomes visible. Azan noticed it, too. People in the village suddenly became more curious about him. They asked what he worked on every evening. They questioned why he bought electrical tools. They wondered why he walked to town so often. But Azan always replied with the same calm voice, "Oh, nothing special." Some laughed and said he was wasting his time. Some whispered that he was odd. Some assumed he was doing something foolish. But Azan kept silent, because he had learned something important. When you talk too much about your dreams, you invite noise into your mind. When you stay silent, you allow your vision to grow. Creating a simple lantern was one thing. Turning it into a working business was another. Azan soon realized he had no money to buy materials in bulk. He had no machines, no workshop, and no support. For a moment, he considered sharing his idea with the wealthy landowner Mr. Irfan, hoping for investment. But a voice inside him whispered, "Not yet. Not until you're ready." So Azan found another way. He began repairing old electronics in the village to earn a little money. Radios, torches, small fans, anything people brought to him, he fixed for a small fee. He saved every rupee. He lived simply, sometimes skipping his own wishes, sometimes sacrificing comfort. But his dream grew stronger than his hunger, stronger than his tiredness. And day by day, his savings began to grow. He bought better tools, better solar panels, stronger batteries. He built lantern after lantern, improving them one step at a time. After 8 long months, he had created 40 fully working solar lanterns, all without anyone knowing. His silence had become his strength. Just when things seemed steady, life tested him. One stormy night, lightning struck near the village and damaged the electricity poles. The whole village fell into darkness. People rushed out of their homes, worried and confused. Azan stood at his doorway, watching the darkness swallow the streets. Children cried, lamps flickered, and people struggled without light. And for the first time, he realized, this is the moment I've been preparing for. He brought out his lanterns, one by one, and walked into the darkness. People gathered around him, confused. One man asked, "What is this?" Azan smiled gently. "It's a lantern I made." He placed the first lantern in the house of an elderly widow who lived alone. Her eyes filled with tears as the room brightened. He gave the second lantern to a family with a sick child. The third to a shopkeeper who needed to protect his store. The fourth to a farmer who needed to check on his animals. Within an hour, the whole village lit up with Azan's lanterns, 40 houses glowing in the night. People stared in disbelief. How did you do this? When did you make these? Why didn't you tell us? Azan simply said, I was waiting for the right moment. For the first time, silence spoke louder than words ever could. The next morning, something happened that had never happened before. People came to Azan's house, not to question him, not to laugh at him, not to gossip, but to appreciate him. Old men shook his hand. Women blessed him with prayers. Children looked at him with admiration. And then came Mr. Irfan, the wealthy landowner, who had never taken Azan seriously. My son, he said respectfully, I want to invest in your idea. Let's take this project to the entire district. Azan listened politely but said, I want to grow slowly, carefully, step by step, I don't want to rush. It shocked everyone. Who refuses a rich man? But Azan knew something they didn't. Dreams that grow slowly grow stronger. Dreams that grow quietly grow safely. He rented a small workspace with his saved money. He hired 2 young boys from the village to help him. He trained them with patience and discipline. Months later, the lanterns reached nearby towns. A year later, the lanterns reached other districts. Soon, small cities began placing bulk orders. And within 4 years, Azan's brand, Mare Light, became known across the region. People admired him, customers trusted him, companies partnered with him, and everyone said the same thing. One evening, as Azan stood on the roof of his new workshop, watching thousands of lanterns being packaged, his assistant asked, Sir, how did you stay so patient? Why didn't you tell anyone from the beginning? Azan looked at the sunset and replied, Because plans are like seeds. If you plant them in the open, people step on them. If you plant them in silence, they grow strong roots. He continued, People don't always hate you. Sometimes they just don't understand your dream. Sometimes they fear your progress. Sometimes they discourage you without knowing the weight of their words. That's why it's better to protect your goals, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. The assistant nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Azan smiled and said the sentence that became the heart of his journey, Don't share your plan with others. Share your results. Years passed, and the whole village transformed. New houses, new businesses, better jobs, better education. Much of the development came because of the solar lantern business that started in silence. But something deeper happened too. The villagers stopped gossiping. They stopped discouraging each other. They stopped laughing at dreams. They learned from Azan. They learned that early criticism kills ideas. They learned that jealousy blocks progress. They learned that silence holds power. Parents started teaching their children, work quietly. Show your success later. And whenever someone began revealing too much about their goals, others would remind them, remember Azan. Work first, announce later. When Azan became a respected entrepreneur, he was invited to give a speech at a college. Students waited eagerly to hear his life story. He didn't talk about money. He didn't talk about technology. He didn't talk about business strategies. He spoke only about one thing, the power of keeping your plans private. He said, People think success begins with money. But success begins with silence. Silence keeps your mind clear. Silence protects your ideas. Silence saves you from jealousy. Silence gives you strength to work without pressure. At the end, he said the words that became the quote of his life, Silence is not weakness. It is preparation. The hall filled with applause, but Azan smiled quietly. He didn't work for applause. He worked for progress. Not everyone will support your dreams. Some will misunderstand you. Some will discourage you. Some will quietly hope you fail. So protect your dreams. Work quietly. Grow privately. Let your results make the noise.